Hello besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori if you're new. We are doing the biggest book unhaul I have ever done. I'm actually really excited about this because I have been cleaning off my shelves. My goal has been to refine my bookshelves, refine my taste to really reflect what I have been into and what I think my 2025 is going to be. So you're gonna see some of these books and be like, why do you even have that? And to that I say, I literally don't know. Happy Bookmas. Let us unhaul like 25 books. Okay, I don't wanna like jump scare you right from the very beginning. So we'll start with a couple books that I've read recently that I will be unhauling because they were good, not great for me, and there's no point in keeping them on my shelves. Also, all of these books are going to be on my Pango, which is linked down below. This one's a tough one for me because I had really high expectations. Was on a couple most anticipated book releases for 2024. Us in Ruins by Rachel Moore. I think it just read a little bit too young for me. Did I still have fun with it? Yes. Do I think it's a really fun rom-com? Absolutely. Is it a book that I would ever return to? Probably not. I just feel like I definitely was not part of the target audience, and it didn't have, even though I love YA, I am a YA reader, but it didn't have anything that I really clung to in the story that made me like feel some type of way. So she's getting unhauled. I always feel like with unhauls I have so much less to say about the books because I don't want to be like mean. The other book that came in a little bit average for me, and I did have some higher expectations, were Dreams Descend by Janella Angeles. This is another YA that's pitched as like a Carval type book. It's about a mysterious high stakes competition for magicians who are competing to be part of the Conquering Circus. It has the slowest burn romance in it as well, but there were a couple things that didn't work for me, and I think the main thing was the pacing. It is a very, very slow read, and that's never what I anticipate coming into a high stakes competition. I do expect for it to be a little bit more crazy. It is really vibey. The location that it takes place is vibey, but I think going into it with my expectations led me to some disappointment. So again, a good book. I gave it 3 stars. I'm not going to continue with the series because I think it's a duology. I know there's at least one more book, and I'm never going to reread it. This is a book I've had on my shelves for quite a while actually, because I am a Scarlett St. Clair stan. King of Battle and Blood. This is her Adrian and Isolde series. I read this book and I did really enjoy it. I think I gave it like a high 3 stars, if not a 4. But then I read the second book in the series and decided that I wasn't going to continue on. I might have DNF'd the second book in the series at some point. And where I'm not continuing with this, it would better suit another person's bookshelves than mine. Also, my romantasy shelves have really been filling up with books that I absolutely adore, and so I was like, you know what, I need to make room for books that I would scream, cry, and shout from the rooftops about. This is probably not one of those books. It's a really fun vampire fantasy romance that's heavy on the romance, light on the fantasy. It's mostly romance 90% of the way through this book, and then you get some plot like right at the very end. It's a super fun, fast-paced read. I would recommend it. Again, it's just like not a favorite for me, so I'm not going to keep it, but I would recommend it. Okay, we're gonna get into 2 books that I thought I was this girl, and I'm not this girl. So the first one, I am a Witcher girly. Like, I love the Witcher series on Netflix. I'm heartbroken that Henry Cavill is no longer the Witcher. Like, that is my Witcher. I will not be continuing to watch that since he's not going to be. Anyways, The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. It's like a short story collection almost of a bunch of different Witcher adventures that tie into the rest of the book series. The actual books I unhauled quite a while ago, and I got to book 3 or book 4. I might have DNF'd at book 4 in the actual series because the writing finally got to me, and where the story was going, especially certain characters, like where Ciri's plotline was going, it started to get a little bit weird for me. So I ended up DNFing the series. I saved The Last Wish because this is a really cool like hardcover edition. There's no dust jacket on it or anything. This is just the printed cover, which I thought was really cool. And so I had been saving it. I think it's time that I do let it go because although I love Geralt, I'm not gonna reread this. I am not this girl where I unhauled the rest of the series. It feels weird hanging on to a reminder of how disappointed I was that I had to stop. And then the second one, this book is so hard to let go because the writing is good and the story was good, but the format of the story and the way that it was being told is what really bothered me. And that is Shadowless by Randall McNally. This is a book that I think you can still find on Kindle Unlimited. It's more of a high fantasy world, and we have a very interesting plot setup. Like, this is what kills me, is that I was interested in the story, I just didn't like the way it was being told, and I'll get to that in a moment. But this book is about, in the Northern Realms, there are these people called the Shadowless. It's said that they're spawned by the malevolent deities of this world. These children of the gods are persecuted at every turn, and the way that they're identified is they don't have a shadow when the sun falls on them. They're hunted by high priests who carry out the wishes of their gods. They're hunted by the shadow watchers, who are armed soldiers assigned to each temple, and they're hunted by the gods themselves. So it's a really persecuted people. Part mortal, part god, the Shadowless live for centuries and face a battle for survival, constantly on the run or hiding in far-flung corners of the Northern Realms, and their fates are kind of being brought together by this mysterious monk, Amrodin. Driven by a series of visions, Amrodin travels through the Northern Realms seeking out the Shadowless and trying to enlist their help to take a stand and fight back against the gods. So interesting. The writing is really good as well, but what was throwing me off is that every single chapter you follow a different character, and it's almost like an entire collection of short stories, because I read to page 150. It wasn't reading like coherent enough for me. I felt like I would really like a character and I would like their storyline, and then you would jump to someone else entirely and you would never go back to that other character. And so I was like, where's the connection? Like, this feels far too disjointed for me. I feel like in fantasies, these are my books where I have that connection to these characters. I'm riding for them, I am dying for them. I want that connection in this epic fantasy tale. I wasn't able to do that in this one. Okay, there's a couple books that I have doubles of because I bought them for myself and then y'all sent me editions of them, I think off of my Amazon wish list, and so I'm unhauling the ones that I bought for myself and I'm keeping the ones that y'all sent me. So please don't freak out that I'm unhauling these books, because both of these were actually like 4 or 5 star reads for me. So I'm unhauling one edition that I have of Heartless by Elsie Silver. I love Kate and Willa. I will love them until the day that I die. I'm not unhauling it because I don't like them. I love them, but I wanted to keep the edition that Bailey sent me from Bay's Reads. So I'm unhauling the one that I bought for myself. And then I'm also unhauling Phantasma by Kaylee Smith, again, because this is just a duplicate copy for me. So these are absolute favorite books of mine, especially favorite books for 2024. These will be on my Pango if you want to purchase them. Another really positive book that I have that I'm unhauling, just this edition, is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. I love this book. This is a 5-star book for me. If you like a gothic magical realism tale that has a beautiful lyrical writing style, you will love this book. I think that the writing is incredible. I think the characters and the story are absolutely incredible in this. I got this edition because I wanted to read it and annotate it, but then I got really annoyed that the Target sticker is a permanent sticker, and the hardcover edition of this is just like a prettier cover. So I was being a cover snob and decided to get a hardcover edition of that book, and I'm going to be unhauling this paperback edition. But this is another one that, if you haven't read this yet and it sounds interesting, please pick it up. I think you will absolutely adore it. Also, the audiobook is narrated by Steve West, and he does an incredible job. He is my favorite narrator probably of all time. Like, honestly, he's so top tier. I love him so much. So Last Tale of the Flower Bride is being unhauled. The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Perry. This is a YA fantasy that, if you liked Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, if you liked any Margaret Rogerson, I think that you would really vibe with H.G. Perry's writing. If you liked a writing kind of similar to, I would maybe say Divine Rivals as well as another comparison, I think this would do you well. Follow a girl named Biddy. She lives off the coast of Ireland on a legendary island that's hidden by magic. It's the only place she's ever known. She washed up there as a baby and she was taken in by her caretaker slash guardian, who is a mercurial magician called Rowan. And she is happy with her life, but she starts to get the itch to see more of the world because Rowan, her guardian, travels all the time. He can turn into, I think it's a bird, and he just flies away, and she's like left to her own devices as a teenager on this island. But she starts to get this need to travel and see more of the world outside of this very reclusive island that she's lived on her whole life. One night, Rowan fails to return from his mysterious travels, and to find him, Biddy must venture into the outside world for the first time. But Rowan has powerful enemies, forces who have hoarded the world's magic and have set their sights on the magician's many secrets, and Biddy might be the key to stop them. Magic in this world is just so whimsical. It's a very whimsical read. Also, if you liked Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia, I think that you would really like this book too. Like, there's so many comparisons, and I feel like this book isn't talked about enough. I think it has a little bit more of an emotional pull than like an Emily Wilde or like Half a Soul. The pacing is a little bit slower. I feel like I was so encapsulated in the world that I didn't mind that slower pace, but I know you could also argue that for like Emily Wilde has kind of a slower pace as well. But where it's a YA, there's not a romance in this. It's really just following her story and her interactions, learning about the world around her and learning about magic. But I think it's a really beautiful coming of age story, and the magical familiars in this book will have you just crying because they're so sweet and there's such like an emotional tie. And I have to make room on my YA shelves because they're also filling up. We're gonna stick with YA for a second and talk about a series that I really fell in love with and marathoned this summer, and that is the Elemental trilogy by Sherry Thomas. The Burning Sky, The Perilous Sea, and The Immortal Heights. I know that The Immortal Heights is hardcover, the other two are paperback. If you like a YA series that has elemental magic, I think that you will thoroughly enjoy this. The magic had me really gagged because it reminded me of the series that will not be named, the HP series, a little bit, and it really hit that nostalgia factor for me, but in a new way because this was a new series that I had never read before. It does have a romance in it. It's very slow burn. It's enemies to lovers. There is a chosen one trope that, I don't know, you kind of go a little bit back and forth with. There's like a prophecy, and then the prophecy comes into question. There's a big bad in this who is getting their magic in a very nefarious way. So there were a lot of parallels to that other series that I really enjoyed this. I thought that the writing was great. I think the only thing that didn't hit as hard for me is I wanted the big bad to be a bit more present. It was almost like they were this ominous figure just like floating in the background that we were dealing with the whole time, but we didn't actually get to see, and then we finally got to see them in the last book. There's an epic battle scene that was really fun. There's a lot of like sneaking around, hiding, a lot of like sneaky plans to get the upper hand as well. It was really fun. It hit on a lot of things for me. I think the finale book is the one that hit a little less hard for me. I don't think I would ever reread this series, even though I'm so happy that I found it and did read it. Maybe it was talked about more at one point because these books are older. I think they came out in like the 2010s, I want to say. This one was published in 2013, so probably around then, like early 2000s, early 2010s. I would try more from her, but that is the Elemental series that we are unhauling. Let's switch to, we'll do a couple other series that I'm going to be unhauling. I'm going to be unhauling the Kingdom of the Wicked series by Carrie Maniscalco. I have all three of these in hardcovers. When I first read them, I was unbelievably gagged. I read these towards the beginning of my fantasy romance journey, and these did what they needed to do for me. I think it's an interesting series because I'm sure you've heard this. They get The first one has no spice. The first one reads a little bit more on the YA side, but there's a lot of tension. Our main character is a witch. Her name is Amelia, and she has a twin sister, Vittoria. It takes place in Italy, and she ends up getting entangled in a deal with the devil. There are the 7 princes of hell. Yeah, there's the 7 princes of hell because they're based off of the 7 deadly sins, which is so fun. And as you go through the series, you get to experience the underworld, you get to experience the other princes. There's a lot of debauchery. I love that the princes all represent a different deadly sin and how that manifests itself in like just the hottest way. But as you get to this last book, this is very much new adult. It is very, very spicy. Carrie Maniscalco said, oh, you want me to turn up the heat from the first one? The second book gets increasingly spicier, and then this last one was just a wild and crazy time in the underworld. So I do love these books. I think they have a special place in my heart, but again, where I'm trying to be a little bit more selective. I'm trying to refine my tastes a little bit on my shelf. And there's books that I love a bit more than I love these, but I think it's time to let them go. Another one that I'm scared to unhaul and show these to you, but these books hit me emotionally a lot harder than I thought they would. I only read the first one, and I decided I couldn't continue with the rest of the series because I would recommend looking up content warnings, especially for the first book. I mean, that's the only one that I have read, but this is a fictional depiction of things that are based on reality, things that actually happened in Asian history and Chinese and Japanese history. I think it's important for these things to be discussed and also written about in a way that it can be interpreted differently. But I think for me, I'd learned about these historical events, but reading them takes it to a next level where you get to almost experience it for yourself as the reader. You get a lot more empathy into these situations. And the first book was a little bit too much for me, even though I'm not sure I gave it a rating because I was so emotionally impacted by it. It was a 5-star, but I can't say I would recommend it unless you look up the content warnings and decide for yourself if it's something that you can handle reading. And I just don't think I could handle reading it, and then I didn't want to continue with the other 2 books because it took me like truly a week to emotionally recover. Just determine if it is for you. And so I'm gonna be unhauling these because I'm not going to continue with the series even though they're incredible. Like absolutely incredible. It's taken me a long time to come to terms that I'm not going to continue with these books, and I do want to unhaul them. Again, not for lack of appreciation, but I just can't do it. This is a book that you're gonna ask, why do you even have that? And that is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I thought I was this girl. I wanted to be this girl. It turns out I'm not this girl. I bought this book when I bought the Witcher series. It's just too big brained for me. I don't even think I ever actually attempted to read this. Maybe one day this will be for me, but I can easily get it from the library. This is a book that I would most likely be reading with the audiobook as well, so I'd get the audiobook for it. I'm just not sure that The Shadow of the Gods is a book for me. I'm very interested in dragons. I do love a high fantasy book, but I've heard that this is a very slow story. There's like not a lot of dragons in it, at least at the very beginning. So I'm quite unsure, but what I can tell you is I'm not unsure about unhauling it because now is not the time for me to read this. Let's just speed run a couple other books that you're gonna be like, what is happening and why do you have these? I have Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. There was a time that I was reading a lot more Latino literature and authors. I absolutely love Isabel Allende. I have a couple books by her that I will absolutely be hanging on to. This one I never got around to. I know that this is a classic. I also love the cover. I found this at a used bookstore and said I absolutely need it. But at this point, I'm just not going to read it. Especially lately, I have not been in a more like serious book, more lit fic type mood, definitely not in a classics mood. My classics mood comes around once in a blue moon, and I can easily get those from the library. So this is just not one that I need. Maybe someone who loves this story and wants a really gorgeous cover will love this edition. It will be on my Pango. Another era that I've outgrown a little bit, Daughters of Sparta by Claire Haywood. Y'all will know if you have been around since the beginning of my booktube channel. Greek retellings had me in a chokehold for quite some time. I have read quite a few of them. I think it started with the A Touch of Darkness series, even though that is a romantasy, spicy series. There was a time where I wanted more serious, more contemporary literature stories, and I was eating these up left and right, especially in the summertime. I don't know why. I was like, I'm gonna be serious girl summer and be reading a bunch of these feminist retelling of ancient Greek like stories and stuff like that. So this one is just one that I haven't got to yet. I don't think I will anytime soon. And again, it's one that I could find from the library if I do have that inkling to return to it. I think that's all I have to say about that. Along the lines of Greek retelling, I read this first volume and I really loved it. Lore Olympus, volume 1. I did end up reading more of this on Webtoons and had a fantastic time with it. It's just one that I don't have a great place to display it. I don't know if I would ever return to it. I did have fun with it while I was reading it. I think I snuck some of these like volumes in for readathons. I found that over time I've moved away a little bit from graphic novels, and so I will be selling this Lore Olympus volume 1. This illustration style is so beautiful. The story is so good. I mean, this author just absolutely crushed it. Different colors. This book is hard for me to let go, and also I never know what to do with books that I tried to annotate. I literally have only annotated, I think, the first three chapters, and all I did was put like little stars next to things. Like, this isn't even heavily annotated, but I never know what to do with them because I feel like people won't want to buy them if they're annotated. So anyways, this will be on my Pango, but just know that the first 3 chapters have very, very light annotations in them. And that is Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. I read Empire of the Vampire. I fell in love with Jay Kristoff's writing. I tried to go back and read Nevernight, and this series with this format just didn't work for me. We have like a cat narrator that pops in every once in a while, and I found it so confusing because I am not a footnote girly. Like, this book you have to kind of read through the actual text, and then there's a lot of asterisks or like footnote numbers that you have to then go refer to get this like cat narrator's thoughts on something. It was hectic and stuff like that does not work for my ADHD brain. That's Nevernight, which is so unfortunate. I love Jay Kristoff and I want to read more of his books, but I think Empire of the Vampire is like my one series with that man. We're ending on kind of a sad note because these last couple books were books I had high expectations for and ended up being a little bit disappointing. The first one being Furyborn by Claire Legrand. I had an angel phase this year. I wanted to get into angel books. I feel like this was a phase I personally missed out on because I wasn't reading during the early, I don't even know when it was, like early 2000s, early 2010s, when I was like in high school and college. I was not a reader, and I feel like this is when all of these angel fantasy romance books came out, and I missed out on that phase of my life, and so I tried to go back to re-experience it, and it didn't work out for me. This is a dual POV book. We follow Riel Dardine, and assassins ambush her best friend. She risks everything to save him, exposing herself as one of a pair of prophesized queens, a queen of light and a queen of blood. And to prove she is the Sun Queen, Riel must endure 7 elemental magical trials. Y'all know how I feel about magical trials. I absolutely love them. If she fails, she'll be executed unless the trials kill her first. 1,000 years later, the legend of Queen Riel is a fairy tale to Eliana, a bounty hunter for the Undying Empire, and Eliana believes herself untouchable until her mother vanishes, and to find her, Eliana joins a rebel captain and discovers that the evil at the Empire's heart is more terrible than she ever imagined. I was interested in Riel's POV, but I wasn't as interested in Eliana's POV. It's another story that it just felt too disconnected for me, and I didn't have a lot of patience after a certain point to continue, because if the book is split half and half and I really wasn't enjoying an entire half of the book spent with one character, I just couldn't do it. And so I think I did end up DNFing this book at like 40% of the way through. That's Furyborn, the first book in the Imperium series. And then the last couple books, I feel like if you're a Carrie Lake stan, you will really enjoy the series, or maybe you want physical editions of them. This was my first Carrie Lake duology. The first time I read Nightshade, I absolutely freaking loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I consumed this 650-ish page book in maybe 24 hours. I was so gagged. It's a very gothic, dark romance. And then I never continued with Infernium, and I gave it a second try this year and still ended up stopping after the first book, and I just couldn't get through it. There are, I guess you would call them like fallen angels in this one as well. I'm just making that connection now. It's very dark as well. This was one of the first dark romance books that I ended up reading, and it got me into dark romance, and so for that I'm very, very grateful. But I'm just not gonna keep these on my shelves. There's books that I like more than these, and again, someone might appreciate them a little bit more. This is another book that I did try to annotate the first, I'll say the first 95 pages of the first book, but again, it's very light, just highlighting every once in a while. So that is the big unhaul, friends. My shelves are nice and clean. They are ready for new books. I feel so excited because in 2024, we have been doing reading our entire physical TBR challenge, and we crushed it. That's sort of why I'm unhauling a lot of these books, because I was finally able to read them or reread them, give them another try, and fully make the decision to unhaul. And I'm so excited to have an empty TBR cart. Thank you so much for watching, friends. I hope that you enjoyed. I will catch you in the comments, and I will see you in my next one very soon. Toodles!